Okay, so today's the day I'm going to fit my Swytch kit to my single speed giant bike. I hit a bit of a stumbling block yesterday. I was having a look at this pedal assist sensor, and to get this onto the crank you basically have to pull off this metal part, and what should happen, this should stay together and then you should be able to just pull it apart, but you can see there's little tiny lugs in here which hold it in place. And I didn't pull it that hard, but it actually came apart. So I contacted Swytch via the Facebook forum and on a Sunday yesterday, and they got back to me straight away and said to send my email address, and they'll send me another one. So I've sent my email address, so I'm waiting for one of those to come. It does stay together with the retainer. I don't know how well it will stay together if I go over big bumps, but obviously, well, I was thinking as well that maybe if I drilled 4 holes and put a couple of cable ties through, as long as that doesn't rub against anything, that would mean that if it did come loose in any way, then I'd probably still be safe. Anyway, that's not going to stop the build, so that's not a problem. Okay, so this is my single speed giant XTC SX. It started its life as a Carrera Kraken, and some of the original bits are on there: stem, the wheels, the seat. Apart from that, I think everything has been changed over the years. So I bought some really nice downhill handlebars. This is a very old crank I would have got from the dump. I get a lot of my things from the dump. This weird seat post, I didn't have the right seat post, but this has held it in place very well. Anyway, I've got to take off the front wheel, so I'll move the bike stand because it's easier to do that on the floor. Okay, so let's get the front wheel off first. And I've got to remove the disc on this wheel because that's obviously going to go on the new wheel, the Swytch wheel. Okay, so there's my disc. So let's see, I haven't checked this to see if this marries up. Let's hope it does. Yeah, all those holes are in the same place, look, so that's a good start. Right, let's get the screws out of there. Now the old wheel was like metal to metal. On the Swytch wheel, I've got a plastic bit here, and I don't know whether I take off the plastic bit. Looks like I probably do. Obviously it depends what alignment I get. I didn't get any instructions of such. I just got a quick start guide. So I'm not entirely sure. I've watched quite a few of the videos to see what happens. Well, I guess that it all depends on the alignment. I think I'll put a couple of screws in and see what it looks like with the plastic shield in between. Although it is the same thickness. No, I'm going to take it out because it's the same thickness as the disc. So I think it probably is there just to keep the bits on. So let's take that off and put the disc straight on like that. I think that's probably how it's meant to go. The other one was metal to alloy, so I can't think that that'll be an issue. This is obviously the same direction as the other one was. So that's one screw in. If you're wondering about the screwdriver, I saw an episode of Breaking Bad where I think it was Mike was using this to break into somewhere. I didn't get it to break into places, but it's actually really handy, and it's certain jobs it does do much quicker. If I'm doing anything tight, I won't do the last bit with it, but certainly if you want to get something screwed in quicker, it tends to be good for that. Let's give these a last little bit. Yeah, that looks nice and straight. It has been buckled, this disc, in the past because a little kid crashed into me in the park once. Not my fault. So it looks like I can pull off this rubber part, being careful not to pull the cable too much. And then I can get these bolts off, because the retainers have to go on my bike on the outside, it looks like. Okay, so I need to pull all these off. Not so easy getting it over the cable tie. And just see how much room I've got in between my forks. So this should be a better angle for my forks. And let's see where we are with the disc. So I think a washer on the inside here. Yeah. So I'm going to put a washer on here first, because it looks like it needs that space. And then this part on the outside. Carefully not to bend any of those pins. Ideally I wanted to do this with V-brakes, but this is the bike that I ride in wet weathers. So, because I want to do my downhill bike, but which has got V-brakes and a lot easier. Because I don't really do it. This is my only disc bike that I use. Right, so that can be adjusted. And there's no... I know they were talking about clearance of the disc and the spokes and things like that. All of that is clear on mine. I just need to adjust these brakes in a minute. So those are there to basically hold the wheel in place, and I guess it's some sort of rotational lock with the forks. So that all looks alright. Let's grab the bolt. Careful not to bend those little pins. So if you can see that, I put a washer just on the inside, and then this retainer. They wouldn't go on the. They were on the inside when I got it, facing outwards, but this way is definitely the way that's going to fit this one. So there should be another washer here. Just see that they're sat down nicely. Yeah, that feels good. Now these On1 forks that I'm using, these white forks, I got them because they've got. If you're replacing some suspension forks on a bike, but you want some lighter non-suspension forks, they still give you the same sort of height, because as a bike this was a nice height and I wanted to retain that. I don't want to overdo the threads, but I want to be fairly keen with that. Yeah, that's going to be tight enough. Alright, so that bit's on. What else goes? Oh yeah, that bit goes on there, doesn't it, like that? So this is the bit where you've got to be careful with the pins. Give it a bit of a squeeze. Yep, that looks good, and that can be cable tied up to the forks when the other bit's on. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. Still need to do something with the disc adjustment, but I've got to change the cable and everything before that anyway. I might cable tie that up just so that it's not going to do any damage. There you go. So cable tie that in so it's not gonna catch on anything. So now this part, the pedal assist, needs to come apart. This is the bit that I said at the beginning of the video was broken, but as I say, it should be all right. Okay, so it says on here magnet disc for EPAC, and on the other side it says working surface. So this is the surface that needs to go. The smooth side needs to go on the inside. So let's pop that through. This would obviously be a lot easier if it actually clipped together like a working one does, but I can still get it on there. And obviously you can see there how much width I've got, how much space. Right, so if I put it on the down tube like in a lot of the videos, there's not a lot of space there. It'd almost be better off without this adjustable bit. If I put it on that one, even fully in, it's touching, and obviously I don't want anything rubbing. Whereas if I go onto this tube, yeah, that's better, isn't it? Because you can just about, I mean, you haven't got the best angle here. I can't really get it further in. Oh, there you go, that's better. Yeah, that tilted out would be a lot closer to the magnet. So that's, and I don't think that will need anything else. So what I think I'm going to have to do, yeah, so if I pop this here, I'm going to have to run the cable this way. And I looked at this before. It does look like it's doable. So the pedal sensor is going to be there. And it goes up near the bars there. I wonder how long that... Although that cable's very short, you know, because it's one of those. Yeah, it's that cable that's going to be it. So that's going to be tricky, unless I suppose I could still, if it's there, I could still go up the tube, because I could pop a retainer here and then a retainer here, and that's going to give, because obviously I've got to make sure that I've got enough distance for the handlebars. So I would say, yeah, it's going to have to be like that, and I think I'm going to cable tie it here and then loop it down like that. It's not the best of looks, but it's this is going to go on other bikes, so I'm not really too worried about it. Right, let's try and get it into place. So is that pulling off both layers? Perfect. Right, so I need to get in quite tight. I think that's probably going to do it. Of course, that's stuck on now, so I can give that a test, can't I? All I have to do is pop these things together. Okay, so you can see I've plugged the pedal sensor in. The pedal sensor is, I'll show you the angle in a minute. It's not straight to it, but we'll see how close it needs to be for that to operate. So let's maybe turn this off while I plug this cable in. And this has also got an arrow on it. Loads of pins. Okay, so just a quick test before I put everything on. So here's the battery. I've plugged it into the motor, as you can see there, and then I've got the cable running from that to the pedal sensor, and I've got about a 2mm gap there. I haven't secured this with any cable ties yet. In fact, that bottom cable tie is going to be a nightmare to get on because of the angle of the tube, but I'm sure it'll work. So let's twist it and see what happens. I'll need to hold on to the handlebars to do this. Oh, there we are. Stop, and it stops. And I get a little red light. I don't know if you can pick that up because you're quite far away, but there's a little red light that flashes there. So if I push it, let's push it further away and see how close it needs to be. So that's too far away. That's too far away. So that's picking it up. Let's show you how close that is. So at that distance, it was still picking it up. And that is, it's quite a distance. So here's the pedal sensor. Can't get the best angle for this. That's not a bad angle. But obviously I can have it much closer than that. I had it before about here, so about 2mm, and that's probably going to be more reliable for starting and stopping. So I'm going to tighten that all up. Right, so let's try and cable tie that in. Yeah, that's the one I'm not keen about because it's going to be at a bit of an angle, but be all right. Be all right. And then the top one is going to be nice and flat against the cable. That shouldn't be likely to slip too much because it's got the double-sided tape there, and it's a very light device. And I'm going to put some cable ties next to it as well. Let's do a thicker cable tie, so maybe one here, which will keep it rigid. That one there, and then one a little way up the tube. So let's unplug this to do this part. So let's follow this up the tube. Yeah, and then so basically we're going to have enough room to be able to have for steering. So, you know, in the bars turn, that's not a problem there. Let's keep it on that side of the bottle hangers. Get another one of those. As I say, I'm going to use this on other bikes, so I'm not too worried about aesthetically how this looks. And this is a proper workhorse bike. You know, this is a bike I ride in all weathers to work. and it serves me very well, but it will be nice to try it with this Swytch kit. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. So you can see that, obviously with my test earlier on, you can see that it works without any inline brake sensors at all, but that does mean that the only thing stopping and starting the motor is going to be this pedal sensor. So if something was to go wrong with that, I'm not saying that it would, but if something was to go wrong with that, then that could be an issue. I'm going to put one more here. There you go. So there's no danger of that cable flapping around or knocking against anything. So handlebar mount, let's take these bolts out, and then we take these little rubber mounts out, and they go over the bars. Now hopefully I'm not going to have to cut them down, because they're not thick bars on here. They're proper downhill bars, but they're not thick. Isn't that weird? So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to cut those down, because I think you can see that on the angle. There really is it's nowhere near going to close. So how much do I cut off? That is the question. So in my case, I see they've got little indents on them. I'll try the first one, because I've got nothing to lose by trying the first one. Yeah, it's still not going to close. So in my instance, I'm going to need to cut 2 of those segments off. So let's take that off, and then let's do the same on the other one. Oh, it's not quite the same. Okay, it's about there. Nice that this bike hasn't got lots of gears or anything, because it's a single speed bike. It's a very, very minimal installation. Oh, there you go, that looks good. Right, but I think I'm going to have to push that up a bit further so that there's no overlap. Give you a bit of an angle of that. Can you see that? So now when I close that up, there's still quite a bit to go, but obviously it's rubber, so it's going to have a certain amount of give. So that's with those 2 segments cut out. And here's how it looks from the top. It's supposed to be at a 45-degree angle, slightly back. And obviously to allow for the cables and also this mount that goes in. This will be an interesting bit. Let's pop that through there. That's double folded. Yeah, that's caught. So at least that bolt's going to stay where it is now. Right, so as you can see here, I've put it through this thread, and then it goes under. Now obviously, use the official guides. This is the way I'm doing it. Under, and then you pull it tight, and then the hole will go through whichever one is tighter there, because it just gives it a bit more retention to keep that angle up. Let's double it back over and let it go within the system, and I'll just leave that hanging. Oh no, maybe let's go back over several times, because there's space in between there, and it means that it's tucked out the way. I realise you haven't got the best angle of this, but I'll show you in a minute. I've gone underneath the stem here. You can see that bit. Oh, there we go. There you go, underneath the stem and through, and I've just folded it. And I've just folded it back on itself and back on itself several times, and that will just get clamped in there, because it's not going to clamp tight, so there's still going to be enough room for that. I'm not going to damage that because I'll be needing to use it on another project. And you can have a look in there. Well, that's better, that with the light. Yeah, that looks good. I think that angle looks good. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. So I'm going to tighten that down. So this part can go up and into here, matching up with the arrows, arrow and arrow. Yeah, it's a satisfying click that. That other one hanging down is the throttle control. Obviously one of the brake sensors, so that's the front brake. So I'm going to be using this one with a brake sensor, but this one and the throttle control for now, I guess I'm going to tape up underneath and just make sure that there's no water getting into those terminals. I don't know what the official solution is for that. I could do something like that with a cable tie. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that with a cable tie, so there's less stuff loose to rattle as well. So that routes down this side. So I guess down with the other cable. Right, so here we've got the pedal assist sensor. I could maybe put another one up there, although that's not going to get into anything. That's not far enough to get down to the wheel. And then this one is the main power to the motor. So that one could go down here, and let's get the 2 arrows and then give it a good push. There's not a definite click to that, but it doesn't feel like it wants to go anymore, so I'm not going to give that any more pressure. So I guess, so I've got this little cable guide here. I probably should have gone the other side of that, or even just go against the cable. Yeah, let's just go against the cable, and then I'll shift that up a bit as well, because that cable, the front cable is going to stay and the inner cable is going to come out of it. So that one's going to hold that in place. That looks nice, depending on what your version of nice is. Right, and then I think, yeah, that's a decent enough angle. I'll just go with that. Oh, it's just going to happen sooner than I thought, really, apart from the fact that I've got my worst job, which is disc brakes, in a minute. Sticks out a bit, but not too much. So just as a test for steering, look, you can see that I can go right the way. I can go beyond what I would normally do while I'm cycling. Oh, creaky. Yeah, so nothing's untoward happening there both ways. That cable looks a little tight, but it's actually not. There's plenty of room there. So that's fine. Happy with that. It's looking quite neat, I think. Right, let's pull off the cover and whack the battery on it. So I've clipped the battery case on the top. I think that's probably 45. It almost doesn't look right at 45 degrees, and obviously I guess you can choose to angle it how you want. But well, maybe it's wind resistance, isn't it? Because it's creating a bit of a windscreen there. So that's how it looks on. You can see my cabling. Let's see if it's still working. Okay, so switch on. Press and hold the circle. Power assist is on 1, and let's hold on here and start turning the pedals. Yeah. Sounds pretty quiet. You can see the lights flashing where you might not be able to see it because I'm probably in the way. So let's go for power assist 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is power assist 9, so the maximum. And that said 19.6 miles an hour. So when it appeared to cut out, oh crikey, it reached that speed. I mean, obviously it's got no resistance, but it reached that speed quickly, didn't it? Now, you may notice that you got an extra cable. I think I might have mentioned this already, but there's an extra cable. So that is meant to be your new rear brake cable. But in the case of mine, I'm going to use it for my front cable because I'm going to keep the rear brake as it is. I'm not going to change that. I'm just going to use one pedal sensor. So that's the reason you get one brake cable. Basically, what you're supposed to do is take the cable from the rear of the bike and use that as your new front cable, because then it's obviously much longer. And then you take this one and use it as your new rear cable, because your existing rear cable is likely too short to be able to add in this extra length of the brake sensor. Now, so for the disc brakes, I'm going to have to remove this inner cable. So let's grab, an Allen key to undo that. Okay. So let's let that one come out. And that's not going to go through the cable in that state, so I'm going to have to chop off the end of that on a clean bit. There you go. It's good to have a good pair of wire cutters, because if you're going to have to pull a cable all the way through, that's not going to be much fun. Okay, so now this cable needs to come out. Possibly not a bad thing that this cable is being replaced, as it's proper rusty. If it ain't broke. And then I've got my new cable. So this is an ordinary cable. I might put a bit of grease on it before it goes down there, because it was a bit rusty. Let me grab some grease. So first thing to put on the cable is this little brake. I can't remember the name of it. I think it begins with N. So that one goes on because that's what goes in between your lever and the new brake assembly. There you go, so that goes on first. Then we get the brake sensor, and that obviously goes at the top, so that goes on first. And this, they're funny to put on, oh, that's alright. I think when they're new, maybe they give a bit more resistance, so let's pull that through. Like so. So you can see why that was there now, because that obviously gives an interface with this, but it also is the same diameter as an outer cable, so it gives an interface with the brake lever. So now, as you can see, we've got brake sensor, we've got that little bit at the top, and so we thread this through here. We're going to line these bits up so that the cable can go through the gap like that, and then we can twist them so the cable's not going to fall out. And there you can see that's how it's going to look. So we've got brake cable. This brake cable now will thread through the original outer cable, and that's going through nice and freely. And it must have come out the end. Yeah, it's definitely come out the end. So I can pull it from the other end now, and it will go nicely in there. Can you see that? That's what we want to see. So that part must go inside. So let's move this bit underneath. Yeah, there you go. So now if I pull on that, you can see that that's working, and that's going through the brake sensor, so that's what's going to register it. So now this can link up to this one. Again, always the arrows, so you get it. There you go. Well, that didn't have a real pop. I need to put something on there to cover that. That's not looking too untidy considering it's an electric bike. I mean, obviously the not having gears is a good part of it. So that's looking good. Okay, so that's now gone through, and I need to tighten that up, and I need to do the adjustment because obviously it's now with the different setup than it was before, and I'll come back after that because I won't show setting up discs because other people will do much better videos on that. Okay, so I've done 1.5 miles so far. You can hear the motor cutting in and cutting out. What I'll do, I'll let you hear it cut in and cut out. I'll go really close to it so you can get an idea. It's really quiet. That was doing just under 15 miles an hour, but I'm coming to an end of this bit of road, so I'll do another bit a bit further on. But it's amazing how quiet it is. It's really, really quiet, and it's got some real pull to it. I can't imagine what the 300 and 500 watt motors are like, but this 250 watt motor, I know it's one of the newer ones, is great. Okay, so this is a proper steep hill. I'm putting very little pressure on, so on its own it's doing about 8 miles an hour. So let's stand up and help it. Okay, so I had recorded an outro for this video, but unfortunately the GoPro was on time-lapse mode, so there's no audio on it, and it's obviously going too fast. But the Swytch kit, I had a great time on this today. I probably did about 8-9 miles in total, and I was back before, well, I'd fitted the kit and filmed it all and everything. I was back before 12:30 today, yeah, I was really zipping around town. I was going up lots of hills. I did manage to run it out, but I was going for it when I was using it. I was going with it on flat out, and I was going fast, and I was deliberately trying to find hills and off roads and things like that. and so you know, it's not normal use. Pedal assist should be exactly that. But even with it switched off, the bike is still fun to ride, and I think I will leave it on there for a while, really, at least until the weather gets better, and then I'm going to try it on a few of my other bikes. I'll do like a month on video or 2 weeks on video, just sort of letting people know how I'm finding it, if I'm getting any problems, or if everything's still rosy like it is at the moment. But I'm really pleased with it. It is a great purchase, and I would wholeheartedly recommend it. It's a really fun bike to ride, and it really puts a smile on your face when you get that real zip. If you put it on the, you know, the highest assist and start pedaling quick, and it actually, what I'm really surprised at is it works incredibly well with a single speed bike. It's very, very enjoyable on this particular bike. Obviously, when it's going fast, your legs will be going quite fast if you still want to give it assist. But there's so many different modes on there that I need to go through. But yeah, definitely recommend it. If you've got any questions, please let me know. If I can think of anything else, I'll put it in the comments. But thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Okay, so my bike is less clean than it was, and it wasn't clean to start off with, but everything's holding up well. That was obviously a bit of off-road, a bit bumpy. Going through the stiles was a bit interesting because obviously, well, especially the last one, when I had to wheelie it and I forgot about the extra weight on the front. But it lifts up all right, it lifts up over the stile fine, and yeah, I'm really pleased with it. You can get some nice shots here because the sun's just over on the hill there, looks rather nice with the bridge in the background. And I've done, how many miles have I done? Not very many, but I've done a lot of uphills. I've deliberately messed about uphills and I didn't film all of them. So let's switch that on. So I've done 4.6 miles, I've got to go back now, and I want to try and get this edited. If you press and hold these two buttons, gives you different modes. Now I worked this out to be throttle control TC, and I haven't got the throttle control on this one, and I've only got one brake sensor and it works absolutely fine with that. It does work without brake sensors at all. If I press the circle button again, I get BL, which was backlight, so that was the backlight, and then U was the units, kilometers and miles. Right, I'll get some shots on the way back with the selfie stick because the motor is super quiet. I can't believe how quiet it is, even when it's going sort of 20 miles an hour and it's pulling you along at that speed. Really, really good. Really pleased with this. I'm going to do another video where I check back, I guess, with the next couple of weeks or a month, just to show how I'm getting on, and then eventually I'll swap it over to another bike. But I'm probably not going to do it for a little while because this is the bike I would ride in bad weather, and my downhill bike is one I want for the